Hello everyone and welcome back to the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I am here outside of Bloated Man's Grotto. If you remember in the last installment we did the mission, the quest for Hersine, where we killed Sinding the werewolf and got the Savior's hide. I don't know where Lydia is. Did she just vanish? Okay, I'm gonna fast travel in the hopes that she shows up. So forgive me. I mean, we're right here. So. There she is. Okay. Cool. So, we're gonna head back. Hey, Janassa. You're gonna come, right? Okay, yeah, she is. We're gonna head back to Whiterun, and I'm going to deal with all the stuff I picked up in the last installment, put that in my collection, and then I'm gonna read some more books because it's been a while since the last time we did that. And also I'm just trying to catch up from missing last week, and I gotta play this again to prepare for the coming week. So yeah, you guys Vigilance of Stendar? Yes, you are.
The suffering the Daedra caused will not go unpunished.
Are you gonna fight this giant? That'd be crazy. Are they gonna fight? No. Suppose not. No. Thought I was gonna be able to pick that up. I can take the shield though. Alright, let's continue. Back on the path to Whiterun. I'm recording this on, what's the date? Sunday, August 9th. So I'm uploading this to make up for the fact that I didn't post one last week. Oh, hello, who are you?
There's
Mercenary.
been word of some trouble nearby. I'm on my way to investigate.
I like your outfit. It's a cool dress. Yeah, just, I've had a really rough week. A rough couple of weeks, I guess, if I'm being completely honest. Without going into, like, too much detail, I basically just kind of had, like, a revelation about myself and about, like, my mental health and why I've been feeling the way I've been feeling, which is bad. The way I've been feeling is bad. And I've been really confused about it for like most of my life. I guess that's not entirely true.
Silence will serve us well in this place. Let us take our foes by surprise.
Yes, true. What I mean to say is that, have you gone your whole life thinking that the way you interact with people and the way that you move through the world is normal, only to then come to the realization that actually it very much isn't? And maybe that is why you've struggled in various aspects of your life, you know, whether it be, oh god, there's occultists, whether it be professionally or, you know, romantically or socially or in any sense of the word, you know. I think I finally figured out why I've been like that. Alright, eat steel, cultists. Get him. Oh, you healing bastard. Think you can get one over on me, huh? Take that, bitch. Ooh, Grand Soul Gem that's filled, and belladonna berries with a texture that didn't load. Where is this guy? Here we go. I do really like their masks. They're super cool. Where's the other one? Over here. Claw runner skin. Meadow rye. Potion of resist fire. Fortify heavy armor. And fortify stamina. Okay, cool. But yeah, so I guess I've just, I don't know, been, I don't want to use the word reeling because I feel like that's so dramatic. But I guess I have been. I've been just reeling from this realization that I've had about myself, and it's been hard to deal with. Like, there were multiple days in the past week where I just didn't go to work because I was so, like, I felt like I had the wind knocked out of me, you know? And I don't want to be the kind of guy who, like, self-diagnoses or whatever, but, like, you know, there's been the longest time where I thought, like, oh, it was one thing, but it doesn't, like, quite fit, so maybe it's not that thing, and then I figured out, oh, maybe it's this thing instead, but, like, no, it still doesn't feel quite right. And then you look at this other thing, and it's like, oh, wow, this is like a dead ringer for, like, everything that you experience in life. Maybe it's this. And yeah, I guess I've just been struggling since then, but, you know, life goes on. You keep on carrying on, because what other choice do you have, right? You have no choice other than to continue and to push forward and to try and find a semblance of happiness and peace, or you lie down and rot. And I am not the kind of person to do the second one, even though there are many days where I do want to do that, you know? And I know, like, maybe you didn't tune into this playthrough to listen to me talk about my fucking mental health struggles or whatever, but I think it's important that we talk about these things, you know? Especially, like, you know, I'm a guy. For men in particular, we tend to not talk about these things because of a lot of different reasons. You push it down in, like, deep into your soul, deep into your gut, and because that's the way that you were taught, you know. Don't show these emotions unless it's anger. Anger is the only emotion you're allowed to show, and even then, it has to be the right kind of anger. So yeah, that's what I've been dealing with lately, and it fucking sucks, I'll tell you that much. But whatever, we're gonna collect some things here from our beloved companions, who I appreciate and love dearly, and then we're gonna read some books. I guess I'm gonna take this armor back from you. And this, I'll take all the food as well. See, if only real life was as easy as Skyrim. You know, you just go around, collect a bunch of stuff, and next thing you know, you're just wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. Unfortunately, the real world isn't like that. You have to work to a certain degree. Okay, nothing's going in here. What about Nico? I need you to get out of the way, please. Do I have any scrolls? Nope. What about food? I got plenty of food. I like how the fresh meat is only a mammoth. Like, it couldn't be fresh meat from any other animal. It has to specifically be a mammoth snout. I started a new playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077 last night, which I haven't played in a while because I beat it and then I was so just emotionally drained from the ending after spending like well over 100 hours in that playthrough that I just like couldn't pick it up again for quite a while. But it's been nice to go back to it. I started like, yeah, just completely fresh, brand new, and man, I love that game. I love that game a lot. What else do I put in here? I think everything else is going in my crafting chest. Okay, we've got some potions. Okay, and alchemy ingredients. Oh, I haven't learned this one yet. That resists magic. Okay. Alright. Yes, Miko, I know, don't worry. We're getting there. Yeah, I would love to record a playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077, but my computer just cannot handle it. Like, even just running the game is a struggle alone, and trying to record it with OBS at the same time is like a non-starter. I really need to upgrade my computer. I've been saying it for a long time now that I need to upgrade my RAM, but I just can't afford it at the moment. And also, I think I might need to upgrade my motherboard before I do that, which is, you know, more money again that I don't have. So maybe one of these days I'll get there. We're not there yet. Until then, I'm going to keep on keeping on with these older games that can still be recorded with fraps. Alright, weapons. What do I have for notes? Anything? Okay, shields. And unique stuff. Let's see, I have the Savior's Hide, unique Daedra drink, and this stuff. Cool. Oh, and there was an Elven shield also. Cool. Alright. Now then. I have Spelltome Flames. Okay, I gotta put that in my nightstand. But we're gonna read a couple books. Let's have a look here. What do I have? A Game at Dinner, A Tragedy in Black. Yeah, let's read A Game at Dinner by an anonymous spy. Forward from the publisher. The history behind this letter is almost as interesting and dark as the story it tells. The original letter to the mysterious Downane was copied and began circulating around the ashlands of Vardenfell a few months ago. In time, a print found its way to the mainland and Prince Lalu Helseth's palace outside Almalexia. While the reader may conclude after reading this letter that the prince would be furious about such a work, impugning his highness with great malevolence, quite the reverse was true. The prince and his mother, Queen Baranzaya, had it privately printed into bound copies and sent to libraries and booksellers throughout Morrowind. As a matter of record, the prince and the queen have not officially stated whether the letter is a work of pure imagination or based on actual occurrence. The house dress has publicly denounced the work, and indeed no one named Duanein, despite the suggestions in the letter, has ever been linked to the house. We leave the reader to interpret the letter as he or she believes. Narisgan, publisher. One second here. Dark Liege Downane. You asked for a detailed description of my experience last night and the reasons for my plea to house dress for another assignment. I hope I have served you well in my capacity as informant in the court of Prince Helseth, a man who I have stated in many previous reports could teach Molag Bal how to scheme. As you know, I've spent nearly a year now working my way into his inner circle of advisors. He was in need of friendship when he first arrived in Morrowind, and eagerly took to me and a few others. Still, he was disinclined to trust any of us, which is perhaps not surprising given his tenuous position in Morrowind society. For your unholiness's recollection, the prince is the eldest son of Baron Zaya, who was once the queen of Morrowind and once the queen of the High Rock Kingdom of Wayrest. At the death of her husband, Prince Helseth's stepfather, King Edwire, there was a power struggle between the prince and Edwire's daughter, the Princess Elisana. Though details of what transpired are imperfect, it is clear that Elisana won the battle and became queen, banishing Helseth and Baron Zaya. Baron Zaya's only other child, Morgaya, had already left court to marry and become queen of the Somerset Isle Kingdom of Firsthold. Baron Zaya and Helseth crossed the continent to return to Morrowind only last year. They were well received by Baron Zaya's uncle, our current king, Hlalu, Athen Lethen, who had taken the throne after Baron Zaya's abdication more than 40 years ago. Baron Zaya made it clear that she had no designs on reclaiming the throne, but merely to retire to her family estates. Helseth, as you know, has lingered in the royal court, and many have whispered that while he lost the throne to Wayrest, he does not intend to lose the throne of Morrowind at Lethen's death. Jesus, these names. I've kept your Unholiness informed of the prince's movements, meetings, and plots, as well as the names and characters of his other advisors. As you may recall, I've often thought that I was not the only spy in Helseth's court. I told you before that a particular Dunmer counselor of Helseth looked like a fellow I had seen in the company of Tholer Sergani, the arch-canon of the Tribunal Temple. Another, a young Nord woman, has been verified to visit the Imperial Fortress in Balmora. Of course, in their cases, they might well have been on Helseth's own business, but I couldn't be certain. I had begun to think myself paranoid as the prince himself when I found myself doubting the sincere loyalty of the prince's chamberlain, Burgess, a Breton who had been in his employ since his days in the court of Wayrest. That is the background on that night, last night. Yesterday morning, I received a curt invitation to dine with the prince. Based only on my own paranoia, I dispatched one of my servants, who is a good and loyal servant of the house dress, to watch the palace and report back anything unusual. Just before dinner, he returned and told me what he had witnessed. A man cloaked in rags had been given entrance into the palace and had stayed there for some time. When I left, my servant saw his face. Beneath the cloak, an alchemist of infamous repute, said to be leading suppliers of exotic poisons. A fine observer, my servant also noticed that the alchemist entered the palace smelling of wickweed, bittergreen, and something alien and sweet. When he left, he was odorless. He had come to the same conclusion as I did. The prince had procured ingredients to prepare a poison. Bittergreen alone is deadly when eaten raw, but the other ingredients suggested something deeper. As your unholiness can imagine, I went to dinner that night prepared for any eventuality. What the fuck? Weird. All of Prince Helseth's other counselors were in attendance, and I noticed that all were slightly apprehensive. Of course, I imagined that I was in a nest of spies, and all knew of the prince's mysterious meeting. It is just as likely that some knew of the alchemist's visit, while others were simply concerned by the nature of the prince's invitation, and still others merely unconsciously adopted the tense disposition of their fellow, better-informed counselors. The prince, however, was in fine mettle, and soon had everyone relaxed and at ease. At 9, we were all ushered into his dining hall, where the feast had been laid out. And what a feast! Honeyed gore apples, fragrant stews, roasts and various blood sauces, and every variety of fish and fowl expertly and ostentatiously prepared. Crystal and gold flagons of wine, Flynn, Shane, and Masty were at our seats to be savored as appropriate with each course. As tantalizing as the aromas were, it occurred to me that in such a maze of spices and flavors, a discreet poison would be undetectable. Throughout the meal, I maintained the illusion of eating the food and drinking the liquor, but I was surreptitious and swallowed nothing. Finally, the plates and food were cleared from the table, and a tureen of a spicy broth was placed in the center of the banquet. The servant who brought it then retired, closing the banquet hall door behind him. "It smells divine, my prince," said the Marchioness Kolgar, the Nord woman, "but I cannot eat another thing." What is a tureen? I've never heard that word before. I gotta make note of that so I can look it up later. Your Highness, I added, feigning a tone of friendliness and slight intoxication, "you know that every one at this table would gladly die to put you on the throne of Morrowind, but is it really necessary that we gorge ourselves to death?" The others at the table agreed with appreciative groans. Prince Helseth smiled. "I swear by Vermina, the Gifter, my dark liege, even you have never seen a smile such as this one." Ironic words. You see, an alchemist visited me today, as some of you already doubtless know. He showed me how to make a marvelous poison and its antidote. A most potent poison, excellent for my purposes. No restoration spell will aid you once you've ingested it. Only the antidote and the tureen will save you from certain death. And what a death from what I've heard. I am eager to see it if the effects are all that the alchemist promised. It should be horribly painful for the afflicted, but quite entertaining. No one said a word. I could feel my heart beating hard in my chest. "Your Highness," said Alarat, the Dunmer I suspected of alliance with the temple, "have you poisoned someone at this table?" "You are very astute, Alarat," said Prince Helseth, looking around the table, eyeing each of his advisors carefully. "Little wonder I value your counsel, as indeed I value all in this room. It would be perhaps easiest for me to say who I haven't poisoned. I haven't poisoned any who serve but one master, any whose loyalty to me is sincere. I haven't poisoned any person who wants to see King Helseth on the throne of Morrowind. I haven't poisoned anyone who isn't a spy for the Empire, the Temple, the House of Telvanni, the House of Redoran, the House of Indoril, the House of Dress." "Your Unholiness," he looked directly at me at his last words. "I know that in certainty. My face is practiced at keeping my thoughts from showing. But I immediately thought of every secret meeting I've had, every coded message I sent to you in the house, my dark liege. What could he know? What could he, even without knowing, suspect?" I felt my heart beating even faster. Was it fear or poison? I couldn't speak, certain as I was that my voice would betray my calm facade. "Those loyal to me who wish harm on my enemies may be wondering how can I be certain that the poison has been ingested. Is it possible that the guilty party, or dare I say parties, were suspicious and merely pretended to eat and drink tonight? Of course. But even the craftiest of pretenders would have to raise a glass to his or her lips and put empty forks or spoons in their mouths to play the charade. The food, you see, was not poisoned. The cups and cutlery were. If you did not partake out of fear, you're poisoned just the same, and sadly missed an excellent roast." Sweat beaded on my face, and I turned from the prince so he would not see. My fellow advisors, all of them, were frozen in their seats, from the Marchioness Kolgar, white with fear, to Kima and Nebby, visibly shaking from the furrowed, angry brow of Alarat to the statue-like stare of Burgess. I couldn't help thinking then, could the prince's entire counselorship become comprised of nothing but spies? Was there any person at the table loyal? And then I thought, what if I were not a spy myself? Would I trust Helseth to know that? No one knows better than his advisors both the depth of the prince's paranoia and the utter implacability of his ambition. If I were not a spy for the house dress, even then could I be safe? Would I be safe? Could a loyalist be poisoned because of a not-so-innocent misjudgment? The others must have been thinking the same, loyalists and spies alike. While my mind whirled, I could hear the prince's voice addressing all assembled. "The poison acts quickly. If the antidote is not taken within 1 minute from now, here will be death at the table." I couldn't decide whether I had been poisoned or not. My stomach ached, but I reminded myself it might have been the result of sitting at a sumptuous banquet and not partaking. My heart shook in my chest, and a bitter taste like trauma root stung on my lips. Again, was it fear or poison? "These are the last words you will hear if you are disloyal to me," said Prince Helseth, still smiling that damned smile as he watched his advisors squirming in their seats. "Take the antidote and live." Could I believe him? I thought of what I knew of the prince and his character. Would he kill a self-confessed spy at his court, or would he rather send the vanquished back to his masters? The prince was ruthless, but either possibility was within his manner. Surely the theatricality of this whole dinner was meant to be a presentation to instill fear. What would my ancestors say if I joined them after sitting at a table, eventually dying of poison? What would they say if I took the antidote, confessing my allegiance to you in the house dress, and was summarily executed? And I confess I thought of what you might do to me even after I was dead. I had grown so light-headed and filled with my own thoughts that I didn't see Burgess jump from his seat. I was only suddenly aware that he had the tureen in his hands and was gulping down the liquid within. There were guards all around, though I never noticed them entering. "Burgess," said Prince Helseth, still smiling. "You have spent some time at Ghostgate. How's Redoran?" "You didn't know?" Burgess laughed sourly. "No house. I report to your stepsister, the Queen of Wayrest. I've always been in her employ. My Akatosh, she poisoned me because you thought I was working for some damnable dark elves?" "You're half right," said the prince. "I didn't guess who you were working for, or even that you were a spy, but you're also wrong about me poisoning you. You poisoned yourself when you drank from the tureen." "Your Unholiness, you don't need to hear how Burgess died. I know that you have seen much over the many, many years of your existence, but you truly don't want to know. I wish I could erase the memory of his agonies from my own mind." The council was dismissed shortly thereafter. I do not know if Prince Helseth knows or suspects that I too am a spy. I do not know how many others last night, were as close as I was from drinking from the tureen before Burgess did. I only know that if the prince does not suspect me now, he soon will. I cannot win at the games he mastered long ago at the court of Wayrest, and I beg your Unholiness, my dark liege, Dawain, to use your influence in the house dress and dismiss your loyal servant from his charge. Publisher's note. Of course, the anonymous writer's signature has not been on any reprint of the letter since the original. Okay. That was a longer book than I expected. Okay. Activate bookshelf, please. 2 more books in this bookshelf. Alright. Game at dinner. Oops, didn't want to do that. Sit back down. Aevar Stone-Singer. Sure. Sit quietly, child, and listen, for the story I tell you is a story of the ages. But what is it, grandfather? Is it a story of heroes and beasts? The grandfather looked patiently at the child. He was growing into a fine boy. Soon he would see the value in the stories, the lessons that were taught to each generation. Just listen, child. Let the story take root in your heart. In the time before now, long before now, when the Skald were new, there was a peace in the land. The sun was hot and the crops grew long, and the people were happy in the peace that the Allmaker provided. But the Skald grew complacent and lazy, and they took for granted the lands and all the gifts the Allmaker had given them. They forgot or chose not to remember that the adversary is always watching, and that he delights in tormenting the Allmaker and his chosen people. And so it was that the adversary came to be among the Skald. The adversary has many aspects. He appears in the unholy beasts and the incurable plague. At the end of seasons, we will know him as Thartag, the world devourer. But in these ages he came to be known as the Greedy Man. The Greedy Man, that is what we call him, for to speak his name would certainly bring ruin on the people. Lived among the Skald for many months. Perhaps he was once just a man, but when the adversary entered into him, he became the Greedy Man, and that is how he is remembered. It came to be one day that the powers of the Skald left them. The strength left the arms of the warriors, and the shaman could no longer summon the beasts to their side. The elders thought that surely the Allmaker was displeased, and some suggested that the Allmaker had left them forever. It was then that the Greedy Man appeared to them and spoke. "You of the Skald have grown fat and lazy. I have stolen the gifts of your Allmaker. I have stolen the oceans, so you will forever know thirst. I have stolen the lands and the trees and the sun, so your crops will wither and die. I have stolen the beasts, so you will go hungry, and I have stolen the winds, so you will live without the spirit of the Allmaker. And until one of you can reclaim these gifts, the Skald will live in misery and despair, for I am the Greedy Man, and that is my nature." And the Greedy Man disappeared. The members of the Skald spoke for many days and nights. They knew that one of them must retrieve the gifts of the Allmaker, but they could not decide who it should be. "I cannot go," said the elder, "for I must stay to lead the Skald and tell our people what is the law." "I cannot go," said the warrior, "for I must protect the Skald. My sword will be needed in case the Greedy Man reappears." "I cannot go," said the shaman, "for the people need my wisdom. I must read the portents and offer my knowledge." It was then that a young man called Aevar lifted his voice. He was strong of arm and fleet of foot, though he was not yet a warrior of the Skald. "I will go," said Aevar, and the Skald laughed. "Hear me out," the boy continued. I am not yet a warrior, so my sword will not be needed. I cannot read the portents, so the people will not seek my counsel. And I am young, and not yet wise in the ways of the law. I will retrieve the gifts of the Allmaker from the greedy man. If I cannot, I will not be missed. The Skull thought on this, briefly, and decided to let Aevar go. He left the village the next morning to retrieve the gifts. Aevar first set out to retrieve the gift of water, so he traveled to the Water Stone. It was there the Allmaker first spoke to him. Travel west to the sea and follow the swimmer to the waters of life. So Aevar walked to the edge of the ocean, and there was the swimmer, a black worker, sent from the Allmaker. The swimmer dove into the waters and swam very far, and far again. Aevar was strong, though, and he swam hard. He followed the swimmer to a cave, swimming deeper and deeper, his lungs burning and his limbs exhausted. At last he found a pocket of air, and there, in the dark, he found the waters of life. Gathering his strength, he took the waters and swam back to the shore. Upon returning to the Water Stone, the Allmaker spoke. You have returned the gift of water to the Skull. The oceans again will bear fruit, and their thirst will be quenched. Aevar then traveled to the Earth Stone, and there the Allmaker spoke to him again. Enter the cave of the hidden music, and hear the song of the earth. So Aevar traveled north and east to the cave of the hidden music. He found himself in a large cavern, where the rocks hung from the ceiling and grew from the ground itself. He listened there and heard the song of the earth, but it was faint. Grabbing up his mace, he struck the rocks of the floor in time with the song, and the song grew louder until it filled the cavern and his heart. Then he returned to the Earth Stone. The gift of the earth is within the skull again, said the Allmaker. The lands are rich again and will bear life. Aevar was tired as the sun burned him. The trees offered no shade, and there was no wind to cool him. Still he traveled on to the Beast Rock, and the Allmaker spoke. Find the good beast and ease his suffering. Aevar traveled through the woods of the Isenfir for many hours, until he heard the cries of a bear from over the hill. As he crested a hill, he saw the bear, a falmer's arrow piercing its neck. He checked the woods for the falmer, for that is what they were, though some say they are not, and finding none, approached the beast. He spoke soothing words and came upon it slowly, saying, Good beast, I mean you no harm. The Allmaker has sent me to ease your suffering. Hearing these words, the bear ceased his struggles and laid his head at Aevar's feet. Aevar grasped the arrow and pulled it from the bear's neck. Using the little nature magic he knew, Aevar tended the wound, though it took the last bit of his strength. As the bear's wound closed, Aevar slept. When he awoke, the bear stood over him, and the remains of a number of falmer were strewn about. He knew that the good beast had protected him during the night. He traveled back to Beast Rock, the bear by his side, and the Allmaker spoke to him again. You have returned the gift of the beasts. Once again, the good beasts will feed the skull when they are hungry, clothe them when they are cold, and protect them in times of need. Aevar's strength had returned, so he traveled on to the Tree Stone, though the good beast did not follow him. When he arrived, the Allfather spoke to him. Allfather, eh? I think they messed up. They're calling him the Allfather instead of the Allmaker. Oops. The first trees are gone and must be replanted. Find the seed and plant the first tree. Aevar traveled again through the Herstang forest, searching for the seeds of the first tree, but he could find none. Then he spoke to the tree spirits, the living trees. They told him that the seeds had been stolen by one of the Falmer, for they are the servants of the adversary, and this Falmer was hiding them deep in the forest so that none would ever find them. Aevar traveled to the deepest part of the forest, and there he found the evil Falmer, surrounded by the lesser tree spirits. Aevar could see that the spirits were in his thrall, that he had used the magic of the seeds and spoke their secret name. Aevar knew he could not stand against such a force, and that he must retrieve the seeds in secret. Aevar reached into his pouch and drew out his flint. Gathering leaves, he started a small fire outside the clearing where the Falmer and the ensorcelled spirits milled. All the Skull know the spirits' hatred of fires, for the fires ravage the trees they serve. At once the nature of the spirits took hold, and they rushed to quell the flames. During the commotion, Aevar snuck behind the Falmer and snatched the pouch of seeds, stealing away before the evil being knew they were gone. When Aevar returned to the tree stone, he planted the tree in the ground, and the Allmaker spoke to him. The gift of trees is restored. Once again the trees and plants will bloom and grow and provide nourishment and shade. Aevar was tired, for the sun would only burn and the winds would not yet cool him, but he rested briefly in the shade of the trees. His legs were weary and his eyes heavy, but he continued on, traveling to the Sunstone. Again the Allmaker spoke. The gentle warmth of the sun is stolen, so now it only burns. Free the sun from the halls of Penumbra. And so Aevar walked west over the frozen lands until he reached the halls of Penumbra. The air inside was thick and heavy, and he could see no further than the end of his arm. Still he felt his way along the walls, though he heard the shuffling of feet and knew that this place held the unholy beasts who would tear his flesh and eat his bones. For hours he crept along until he saw a faint glow far at the end of the hall. There, from behind, a sheet of perfect ice, came a glow so bright he had to shut his eyes, lest they be forever blinded. He plucked the flaming eye from one of the unholy beasts and threw it at the ice with all his might. A small crack appeared in the ice, then grew larger. Slowly the light crept out between the cracks, widening them, splitting the ice wall into pieces. With a deafening crack the wall crumbled, and the light rushed over Aevar and through the halls. He heard the shrieks of the unholy beasts as they were blinded and burned. He ran out of the halls, following the light, and collapsed on the ground outside. When he was again able to rise, the sun again warmed him, and he was glad for that. He traveled back to the Sunstone, where the Allmaker spoke to him. The gift of the sun is the skulls once again. It will warm them and give them light. Aevar had one final gift he had to recover, the gift of the winds, so he traveled to the Windstone, far on the western coast of the island. When he arrived, the Allmaker spoke to him, giving him this final task. Find the greedy man and release the wind from his captivity. So Aevar wandered the land in search of the greedy man. He looked in the trees, but the greedy man did not hide there, nor did he hide near the oceans or the deep caves, and the beasts had not seen him in the dark forests. Finally, Aevar came to a crooked house, and he knew that there he would find the greedy man. "Who are you," shouted the greedy man, "that you would come to my house?" "I am Aevar of the Skulls," said Aevar. "I am not warrior, shaman, or elder. If I do not return, I will not be missed. But I have returned the oceans and the earth, the trees, the beasts, and the sun, and I will return the winds to my people, that we may feel the spirit of the Allmaker in our souls again." And with that he grabbed up the greedy man's bag and tore it open. The winds rushed out with gale force, sweeping the greedy man up and carrying him off, far from the island. Aevar breathed in the winds and was glad. He walked back to the Windstone, where the Allmaker spoke to him a final time. "You have done well, Aevar. You, the least of the Skal, have returned my gifts to them. The greedy man is gone for now, and should not trouble your people again in your lifetime. Your Allmaker is pleased. Go now and live according to your nature." And Aevar started back to the Skal village. "And then what happened, grandfather?" "What do you mean, child? He went home." "No, when he returned to the village," the child continued. "Was he made a warrior, or taught the ways of the shaman? Did he lead the Skal in battle?" "I do not know. That is where the story ends," said the grandfather. "But that is not an ending. That is not how stories end." The old man laughed and got up from his chair. "Is it not?" It was like shades of like... It's like The Princess Bride meets The Lord of the Rings meets like the prose Edda. That was nice. That was cute. Alright. Aevar Stone-Singer. Here we go. Alright, and this bookshelf is complete. So, I just need to find... Wait, hold on. I'm going to save again. 2 more books can go on the tome shelf. And aside from that, I'm not going to do any more book reading installments of this series until I get another house with another bookshelf that I can store them on. But I will put... Where is it? That spell tome in here. And it's only 1:50 p.m. Alright, so I'm going to leave it here for now, and I'm going to upload this today, but I'm going to record some more Skyrim, and we'll be doing some actual quests in the next installment, which will come out this week, hopefully on Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. Hope you guys enjoyed this short installment of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I know I did. Loves reading me some books. Always a good time. And I'll see you in the next one. Until then, peace out.